YouTube channel, Quality Homes for All.
Bring on Linda Pinizzotto. How are you doing today, Linda?
I'm doing fantastic, and I especially thank you. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity. Looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, it's great to have you on because everyone is talking about the market and real estate and the year of 2025, and it's really great to get your thoughts as an actual expert, professional in the field. So why don't we start off with your thoughts on what we saw in the market for 2025?
2025 was incredibly frustrating, especially, for realtors. We're having to work seriously 10 times harder than ever. And a lot of the reasoning behind it is yes, we have a fair amount of inventory, but we also have resistance. Confidence with buyers in the marketplace is extremely strong. A continuation of reductions in prices in comparison to where we were over the last few years. Predominantly, I think one of the biggest problems is that people feel that they've lost money, especially if they bought during the boom times and during COVID. And the transitional changes is what's the concern, and along with interest rates, of course.
Right. There is that segment there that feels like like as you mentioned, they bought in, or 2021, around that area, bought when it was really high, and then the bubble burst, and then now, the prices are starting to fall a little bit, and they're kind of left holding the bag, uh, particularly from a seller's perspective. Why don't we take a look at some of the numbers here, Linda, and walk us through what we're seeing here. So let's take a look here. All right, this looks like it's from the
So
Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. So interesting enough, we've had a substantial drop as far as transactions are concerned, without a doubt. And when you look at the numbers, I guess there's two sides of this story. One, of course, is how many transactions went down, totally understandable. However, the price points of the transactions, in my opinion, is where the concern is. Because, some people, especially if they had extremely high interest rates, which, as we all know, I mean, some of the variables went up as high as 8.5, 9%. And if it was B lenders, some of them went up to 10%. So reasons that people are selling. And the other problem is the fact that they have to sell in order for them to gain some equity out to make the transitional change. So when we're looking at these numbers, and like, you've got them up on the screen so everyone can take a look at seeing where the production level is. So that's great. That's the production level. So are things moving to some degree? It took a drop from 2024. But I think the question is monthly carrying costs. That is always a huge battle. And when people are making the decision to pull out of their properties because they do have a lack of equity in those properties, it's concerning because now it's questionable whether or not they can actually buy another property. So if people are upgrading, it's one way. If people are downsizing, is another. And obviously, if people are cashing out, unfortunately, when we're in this kind of a market, it's not the best time in the world to be doing it because the prices have declined.
Right. So from a seller's perspective, someone trying to sell a house right now, for example, I know someone here right on my block here. I'm in
Mhm.
Mississauga, so they are, they've had their for sale sign out for about a month, at least a month now. Um, so obviously, they're trying they're trying to sell the house, but it is a buyer's market. I guess people can be more selective because I guess there's a sentiment too that the prices are going to continue to drop, and buyers are waiting to see how far it just will drop.
That's exactly what they're doing. But the interesting part is while they're busy doing that, they're also wasting their money paying rent every single month, and which they most likely have done over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case may be. People don't necessarily look at things in the big scale. They look at point in accordance with the time that they're at. So if they wait, I'll give you an example. If someone's paying $2,000 a month in rent, which is out the window, and they wait an entire year, that's $24,000 down the drain. Yet they're concerned about buying a property because they don't want to pay that extra $20,000 on the purchase price. Or maybe they don't feel that they can afford it, or maybe the monthly payments aren't working for them. I think, at the end of the day, we still need the Bank of Canada to understand that, we have millions of mortgages that are coming due. Now, some, of course, if they took a 3-year term, it's already happened. 4-year term, mostly last year to this year, 5-year term mortgages, variable rates. I mean, we need those rates to drop to stimulate the marketplace. And so buyers, whether they're first time buyers or second, they understand that it is smart to get involved in real estate. You never lose in real estate.
Hmm.
Sometimes timing may not be perfect,
Hmm.
but you've got to sit down, with a well experienced realtor, and we can exactly plan it out and put them in motion so that they know what to do. But a lot of people, they don't. They get invited into the car, drive around from here to here to here to here. They don't know from one area to the next, to the next, to the next. And you can cross a street and be in a different territory community with respect to the way that we have our prices. You see, so there's a lot of education that needs to be done before people buy homes. And I don't particularly believe that the general public is receiving that.
All right.
Sign
So
of the
there's
times.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Now there's a lot to parse there. Now, when you talk about the interest rate, you're talking about the Bank of Canada there and their decision to pause the overnight rate at 2.25%. So you feel like they should continue to drop that rate in order to spur investment.
Well, we have to look at the actual mortgage rate. I know the Bank of Canada puts out the posted rate and so on, but the actual mortgage rate.
Okay.
So I've got almost a dozen clients of mine that have contacted me and they wanted to renew their mortgage. Okay. And they had variable. Now they've decided to go back into the variable game because they do feel where most of the general public feels that it should be coming down more fairly soon within the 2026 period. They're not getting what rate they're getting, okay, which is a very common, is about 3.9, 4.2, 4.3. It depends on the relationship that they have with the bank. So the banks will deduct, like they will give them a discount on it. If they get the 1-800 phone call, chances are they're not going to get any discounts whatsoever. So people are not smart to deal with the 1-800s at all from the calls from the banks. They're better off to go from there, contact the bank that they have their mortgages with, and see if they can get a better deal at that point. But a lot of people during the time they had 1.8 as variables, it went up to 2.2, 2.4. 2.4 was a common amount. If you had a variable, you did not pay one penny in interest or in principal during the period of time. It was 100% or 110% in interest. And some banks called in that interest. Otherwise, you paid interest on top of interest. So people out there that had fixed terms during the boom time, they were pretty much safe. On average, maybe some of them had about a $50,000 reduction in their principal. Um, Other people with variables did not. So they're still looking at their principal as it was at the time they took their mortgages. And, so there's no relief there. The minute that they get this high interest rate and they get the renewal, they have a larger monthly payment. And
Right.
that's where the affordability problem is.
Right. Yeah.
Along with increased taxes, increased utilities, you can add all these up, but you need to have affordability. It's not necessarily always the price that you pay. It typically is monthly affordability and stability. Do you
And
see what I
and,
mean?
and that's
And
the
that's where
problem.
you have to start. Yeah, that's how people need to think. But unfortunately, to be honest with you, I'm so grateful that we're having this show today because, being in this business over 40 years, I mean, typically that's not the way people seem to think because it doesn't seem to move that way and it has to. No
Mhm.
different from slowly pay off your home, refinance it, pull equity, buy a second property. Like these are things that people do not look at. And it's important to look at your home not as your principal residence, but to look at your investment. It is your investment. It's an investment in your life. And this is the way you need to think. It's an important way to think when it talk about.
All right. What do you say to the people who would point to the, like you said, the rising expenses, not just, um, you know, not, with owning a home, the property taxes and all of
Mhm.
that, everything is going up. Food is going up, and we have all these tariffs now that we have to deal with here,
That's
the
right.
American tariffs. Um, a lot of people would argue that owning a home is more expensive than ever, and that renting, at least until you can afford these rising costs of a home, might be a good temporary solution until you can get your foot in the door.
But they can't. You see, that's the interesting part about it. If anybody did, if I challenge someone out there that actually wants to do a complete survey on that and see whether or not a lot of that could happen. Most people that find themselves in a rental find themselves in a problem to get out of the rental. If you have cash available in your bank accounts, you've got all sorts of sources. You can go shopping. Heck, you can sit in your living room and spend a fortune on Amazon. The problem is that, people need more accountability with the way that they save their money. And it's not always easy because, we are a disposable society. We can buy anything we want at any given time. The problem is, can we save? So if you sit down and you create a very smart investment portfolio and take a look at your monthly payments and so on, and try to put money aside or pay down your mortgages or whatever you can do, that will be the excess cash that you would need in order for you to move forward.
All right. So
You know, you see, so I mean, you give it, you give an example. Would you mind? Can I give you an
go
example?
ahead.
Okay, so now this is interesting. So people have choices, obviously. So what could they do? And this is just blowing it out there. Okay, one is they buy a condominium. Okay, now they buy an older condominium because, of course, it qualifies the way that CMHC and so on. They only take a half of the maintenance fees. So they buy an older one because the maintenance fees are higher, but the price is lower. So more money goes towards maintenance fees than it does to the value of the actual. You buy a newer one, of course, it's a different scenario because typically maintenance fees are not as high in the newer builds. Not brand new construction, I'm talking about newer builds. Like for instance, properties that are, 5 years, 10-year-old condos versus say 40-year-old condos. Now, if someone took their money and they were willing to be a landlord, um, can they use income that they get from a rented basement apartment? Okay. Yes, they can. So there's an alternative. Maybe that's a possibility. Join with partnerships. There's ways that you can do things, but you need to think out of the box. You can't just wait for you to find one single home that you're going to move into because unfortunately, those carrying costs may be too much. So therefore, you can't get out of your rental. And the rental prices, you're lucky because you do have rent controls. So, everybody's happy because they only get 2.5% increase. Anyone that's leaving that property, for instance, and goes into a condo that was built anytime after 2018, well, they don't have rent control, so they may find themselves in some difficulty when they get a huge increase the following year and don't really know about it. So there's so much inside information that's available. Okay, provide you know where to get it from. And that doesn't mean searching all over the internet.
Right, but what I hear you saying is like, buy within your means. Don't go for the fancy new condominium. Go for the one that's older with the lower costs, so that you can get your foot in the door, and then at least you're in the door, and then you can kind of go from there.
Mid-range, like the 5 to 10 to 15. I get very concerned. As you know, I'm the founder of the Condo Owners Association of Ontario. And one of my mandates when I created this nonprofit was to regulate, property management companies obviously are now licensed as a result. But one thing that's really, how high is the maintenance fee in relationship to the value? So if the property is valued at 700,000, you should not be looking at $1,000 a month in maintenance fees. I see a problem. So there's certain ones that you have to be careful about. And again, it comes back to the professional that you're dealing with to understand, how did this property, when the value was lower, get so high in maintenance fees? So
Right,
if you were to pay more money, a little bit more money, but less maintenance fees, depending on, again, it's your monthly payment, your affordability and your monthly payment.
right.
You see, and there's a lot of derivatives about that because, it's a matter of the mathematics, right? You sit down and say, okay, what can we afford? Condominiums are like a budget. If you owned a house, the reserve funds, you have to make sure that they have enough money in the building. So there's condominiums in particular are not, they're not an easy understanding purchase. They're a fabulous purchase to get started without a doubt. I mean, I own condos. I support them 100%, but I don't support owning something when you do not understand and you do not take the time, or in fact, you don't get the representation that teaches you.
All
That's
right.
it. Yeah, information, knowledge is powerful, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we have you on the show here. And yes, you are the
Yeah.
founder of the Condo Association, and a big advocate for condo owners. And one thing I noticed, like the buying pre-construction condo, I mean, that was huge a few years ago, but that's pretty much come to a halt for now.
Pretty much, yeah. And again, even on new builds, I mean, new construction, again, price per square foot. Um, I guess, did you want me to spell out a caution of some degree? There's changes going on with that as well. Some buildings, they own the mechanicals, others lease the mechanicals. Some maintenance fees include utilities. Um, it was very common for, it was, heat and water, and then hydro, it's independent, so you pay that. However, other maintenance fees nowadays, I can name off a half a dozen buildings right off the bat that don't include any utilities. So heat, hydro, and water are not included in those maintenance fees. So again, there's different things that you have to watch out for. So buying something new build, okay, if somebody lives in a condo right now and they've made the change decision that they want to put the deposit down, they want to make the change, that's fantastic. They've put their foot through the door now to say, okay, fine, I want a secondary property. They don't need to sell their place just yet. They can, there's options. If the prices are high, sure, go into a rental for a year or two. If they're not, then wait until you gain occupancy and then you can. But, again, it's about learning what it is that you can do with that investment. Right now, yes, the prices appear to be quite high of what people bought a few years back. So there's a massive adjustment in value. And as you know already, there's a lot of projects that haven't broken ground because of the problem that we have in the marketplace right now.
And pretty much canceled. We just saw one recently canceled,
Yeah.
that made the news there. And another one by Cloverdale Mall in Etobicoke earlier last year. Just unfortunate, but that's like you said, it's just the market that we're in right now. So what are some of the issues or concerns that you see a lot of condo owners voicing going into 2026?
Condo owners are, they do voice, with respect to maintenance fees. Maintenance fees is a big one. It's huge. I mean, because you have to, and I want to mention this because the COA helped this corporation, I guess about a year ago, and we were shocked. Oh my God. This particular corporation only had one bank account. Operating budgets, surpluses, and reserve funds
One
were
bank
all in the
account?
same. One bank account. And are you ready for this? It only had just over $200,000 in it. That was it. Is that
Oh,
insane? Yeah,
oh.
unbelievable, insane. First of all, it's in non-compliance to the Condo Act. So, because there is legislation of how you need to operate it. My personal opinion is that entire board should be immediately stepped down, without a doubt. But the problem is that you have to have a sustainable condominium. So, I think, most people, when they want to buy condominiums, there's typically, you know how it is. Everybody gets all fancied up about the exposure, the floor that they're on, the layout, of course, all those type of things, cosmetics. Okay, it's no different from a house to some degree. But in condo corporations, you have to make sure that that corporation is sustainable as far as the maintenance fees, and you do not find out the financials unless, of course, you get the status certificate, which would protect you. I have a bit of an advantage because I know most of which condos are doing well and which I'd be concerned about, and some that I say no. So there's a few of those, I have to tell you.
Yeah, there's a few,
But
most definitely.
there's
But
a few. Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
but for people who want to get in the know, because that website is a huge resource, can you give the address for that website?
Yes, we
Condo.
have three websites.
Hmm.
We've split them up only because, believe it or not, some people say, hey, I live in Toronto. COA Ontario, COA Ontario.com. We did the additional one, COAToronto.com and COAMississauga.com, specifically for that reason. It seems to be a mindset. Ontario, most of the information is generic between the three,
Hmm.
but it gives a little bit of exclusive rights to Toronto when it's COAToronto.com. But it is pretty much the same information. But again, I do believe that condos are a great way to start. And certainly, I think you asked one question. The real estate market is going to have in 2026 now, the transition is going to be interesting. Why? Because we have companies and we have the order now that people need to return to work.
Hmm.
And I want to touch on that because you see, at the time that COVID began, a lot of people were selling homes, whether they be Toronto or Mississauga or North York or wherever they are, and they could get more for their money if they moved to Hamilton or if they moved to Binbrook or St. Catharines or Welland or wherever. And they didn't feel that they would be stuck with this commute situation. And I remember listening to the CIBC economist, and he said there will be a time that everybody will need to return to work. Well, that's exactly what's happened. So now people that did decide to move away, they actually upgraded on their house. Their land is less money, but their house is worth more. So they made this transitional change because they gave up on location. But now they've got to come back on location, which means chances are, unless they pay more money, they cannot get into the equivalent home that they now live in these other areas. You see,
Hmm.
because you have the difference between land value versus, house value,
Hmm.
right? And so that's going to be interesting. I mean, thankfully, the carbon tax was reduced. 20 cents a liter last year, and we still continue to have gas prices low. So the commute is time. It's your life. It's time.
Hmm.
And sometimes, if you don't have time or your time is too limited on what you can do, your monthly expenses are too high and puts in too many restrictions on you. It's not an easy life.
No.
It becomes a very difficult life. So this commute, I don't know how it's going to impact the real estate world in 2026 if people start selling in these outside areas and decide to come in more into the metropolis area to be close to work. as
A lot.
opposed to this long-driven commute.
I see a lot of people
Food for
predicting that.
thought.
I see a lot of people predicting in 2026, Linda, that it's going to be a challenging year, much like 2025. Um, but in terms of what you were just talking about, there was also that idea that condos and to a large degree houses as well were treated like an investment vehicle. Like, it had a lot of flippers and, people, buying a condo and it just ballooning up in value and flipping it for and making 350 grand on the sale. That was like 5 years or something ago before the bubble burst. Are those people out of the market pretty much now? Are we looking pretty much more like actual people trying to buy a house to actually live in it?
Well, the flipper thing was kind of an interesting. I'm really, really grateful that you brought that comment out, seriously. Most people, I actually have a website that's called flippinghomes, .ca. The interesting part is that the cost expenses to purchase a property and then turn around and flip it, is not an easy thing to do. And some people, if they go in and they start renovating things and you start adding the cost of the renovation, the cost to carry it during the renovation, the cost of the land transfer tax to purchase the property, the cost of the commissions to sell the property, the HST on top of all of that, that window, shuts down pretty darn quick. If
Hmm.
somebody is buying new build and their intention is assignments, oh my God, I hate that word. I really do. Because it's just so untrue. It's impossible. I have sold assignments,
Hmm.
and like there's a period with new build, as you know, that once you've purchased it and you want to then try to assign it to someone else, you can't sell it. You don't own it. You don't own it until that deal closes.
Okay.
And, there could be a very long period of time before you will see that. I had a woman I guess about 6 months ago call me. She was referred to me by her dentist. And she had put a down payment on $2 million condos, $500,000 in deposits,
Wow.
trying to figure out what to do next. And is there a way I can do an assignment?
Mm.
You can't get financing on an assignment. You're not buying anything. You're buying a contract.
Right.
And then, of course, if it becomes, an investment, then you have to pay HST on the purchase price. So there's, again, I think that for people, the people that have really caught themselves short and not doing the math properly, okay, they will have to, unless they, walk away from it. But I'm not seeing a lot of that happening, to be honest with you, powers of sales and so on. They're going to have to ride the tide. Values will start coming back. It always has, ever since I've started in real estate. Like I said, it's timing. So it will come back. But I
When do
guess
you
the
think it'll
question
come
is
back?
the monthly affordability. I don't believe it's going to happen until 2027 when they open the gates to international investors again.
Hmm.
Because right now we have to depend on our buyers here in Ontario. That's who in Canada. So we have to depend, unless it's commercial, but on residential, we need to depend on the Canadian buyers. And too many of them are not looking at this properly. They really are not. The prices are low. They should not be waiting, waiting, waiting. It makes no sense.
Hmm.
Financially and affordability, the power of ownership, it makes no sense. You
Hmm.
see, but again, it's an education thing. And if the bank was to spark just a good half a point less, then yeah, maybe then it would trigger. But I honestly don't see it. The condo world took a massive hit,
Right.
absolutely a massive hit. And now with everything going down, happening in the United States, and as you've said, tariffs and this and that, um, my boys are involved in hockey, that. And, we spent many years because all three of them are now, became professional hockey players. And over the years, I can't tell you how many times I heard, well, the boys would play better if they had more confidence. I absolutely hate that word confidence. I really do. Every Even NHL, like if you listen to a broadcasting from an NHL game, what do they say? They use
Confidence.
confidence. They overuse confidence.
Hmm.
And now when you turn around and you listen to, other parties that are projecting what's happening, in the marketplace. As a matter of fact, I listened to an interview with Rob Flack, and I actually think it was Premier Ford as well. And I honestly, confidence in the marketplace. Okay.
Okay. Well,
When do we gain when do we gain confidence?
okay, let's throw away that word confidence. Just leave it to the
Yeah.
hockey broadcasters. Okay, what about this word here? Uncertainty.
Okay.
Because what
Love it.
some people would argue, there is a lot of uncertainty in the market because even if everything was perfect, Linda, we have a nice, juicy interest rate, mortgage rate. Building people developers are building. The prices are affordable. But
Mhm.
again, if there's that uncertainty, and a lot of people would argue this is another component here. If I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job next week, if
Right.
if food
Right.
prices are going up, my car insurance is going up, my property insurance is going, that is going to give me that uncertainty that, hey, maybe I should delay this house I'm thinking of buying, or this condo I'm want to upgrade to, and push it off. And you get enough people pushing it off, and that becomes a huge problem.
100%. You're right on, without a doubt. And that brings you right back to managing your finances and taking a look at the entire picture before you make the move. There's alternatives. Don't buy the brand spanking new vehicle. Take your time on that. There's things that you can take your time on. It's kind of, what you need versus what you want,
Mhm.
right? And it goes back to that same thing because, the uncertainty will stay in life no matter what. We always have uncertainty. Now we have more than the typical, without a doubt. My belief is because of the tariffs and because of the unrest that's going on, and it's not just in Canada; it's in the United States, it's all over the world.
Yeah.
We have never. This is unprecedented, without a doubt.
And
We've
and I
never been in this. I agree with you, without a doubt. However, prices are low. And so it's a matter of sitting down and looking at all the variables because at the end of the day, you still need a roof over your head and you still need to pay rent, right? So it depends on the numbers. Where else do you have money set aside? I mean, the stock market's not exactly doing fantastic. So you see, do you have a line of credit? Can you access your line? What is your rate on it? Like, there's a lot of different vehicles. But in my opinion is you cannot just say, well, it's uncertain time, so I'm not going to move ahead.
right.
You see, so I think it's important to, I bought my first condo when I was 19 years old. And I've gone through a lot of uncertain times over the
19.
years.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's I lucked out when I was 15. Eleanor Fulcher signed me as in the modeling agency, believe it or not. And yeah, so I saved every penny. But I'm coming from the hood, okay? And my mom was a single mom. My dad decided to walk away from being a dad and a husband, and it was tough times growing up. And I'm proud of what I've learned over the years and the knowledge that I can share with others. I'm remarkably proud. In particular, that's why I'm so driven towards nonprofits and helping people and giving advice and so on. I think that, but I think that you cannot stop wisdom and learning and understanding. And you can always learn from the person that has more than what you have because they've gone through various ways in order to get to where they are. Not from people that are at the same level as yourself. So not always do people listen to the right persons and not always do they take the time to learn. And I think that's, I honestly wish that, coming from this show today, that people will understand that they have to open up their mindset. Uncertain times, I definitely agree with you, without a doubt. But I don't think it should scare you to death that it stops you from learning. And no matter what you learn and you experience, you take that information and you move it. Where do you move it? Next month, 8 months, 1 year, year and a half? No limitations to anything unless you put yourself. That's how I believe, and that's how I've conducted my life pretty much. So I've taken a lot of gambles over the years and they've all panned out.
All right.
So they would,
Wow.
So yeah, so I just so that's one really strong message. So, but I do agree with you on uncertainties. It's not that I'm disagreeing. I just think that there's different strokes for different folks, and there's different ways to handle different things, and you don't always know what you think you know. So,
Right.
I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
We're all learning.
You
Well,
know.
most definitely. And it's probably the best time to learn when, in a downturn like this or in this, when things are
Yes.
down.
Absolutely. In 19, I'll tell you, like in 1990, as you know, the market crashed.
Mhm.
And all the realtors sat back and they were twiddling their thumbs and finding part-time jobs because nothing was selling. Okay, power sales were rampant. It was insane. I decided to approach 9 different banks. I ended up getting the contract from CIBC, TD Bank, Scotiabank, General Trust, Laurentian Bank, Home Savings and Loans, like all of them. The only one I did not secure, I couldn't believe, was Royal Bank. And the interesting thing is I sold 154 powers of sales
Hmm.
between 1990 to 1994. You
Wow.
got it.
A lot of Big Macs, huh?
Because um, just a different way of looking. Before you know it, hey, listen, I had a shovel in the trunk of my car. I even had an electric lawnmower. So guess who was shoveling driveways and mowing grass? They didn't have Equifax doing property maintenance
Oh, I
on
remember.
vacant properties at the time. You remember that, right? I remember that. And hey, you got to do what you got to do. So it built this it built this incredible portfolio. And slowly, of course, the market started to come back in 94 and 95. And that's the way real estate is. I mean, I can go back to believe it or not, I can go back when we had 21.75% interest rates. Yes, we
Oh,
did.
wow. Yes, yes.
Crazy. 21.75. But guess what? The investment certificates, GICs, were at
Mhm.
22% at that time. Is that
Oh,
insane?
oh my.
Yeah.
22? Wow.
Yeah,
You say
22.
22%
Yeah.
today, you would you, you get a lot of eye rolls.
That's it, So, I mean, times, in my opinion, with all AI and chat GPT and computers and all the incredible technology that we're surrounded by, gives you every opportunity in the world
Mhm.
to change up your thought process. I'm not saying you
Oh,
believe everything, but at least it gives you opportunities. Okay, so, I mean, if anything, be more positive. There is a
Yeah, I was just
silver
about to
lining.
say
That's what I
that.
look for.
Yeah, we hear the positiveness, we hear the resilience. Roll up your sleeves and get,
Yeah.
you need a little bit of discipline and spit and polish, and you can do this type of thing. We're here on AvranceCorp Presents. We're talking with award-winning realtor Linda Pinizzotto. 40 years plus of experience in real estate, giving it to you right here on the show. I wanted to go back a little bit, Linda, with what you said about the American tariffs there. Another big component people are talking about is the Kuzma deal. This deal that allows Canadian
Yeah.
parts to go across the border with
Mhm.
minimal or zero tariffs. This is another piece of another deal that people are looking closely at, because if that deal expires or we don't get a deal, it's obviously going to drive up expenses with Canadian parts. It's going to affect manufacturing like it's already has with these tariffs. The auto sector is one example.
Mhm.
What do you think of the Kuzma deal, and also, I guess, what do you think of the Prime Minister's performance thus far, trying to manage expectations with Donald Trump?
I think it's difficult for anyone to manage expectations with Donald Trump because the problem is that he's inconsistent. And it's almost like he wakes up and decides on something else. And I'm not convinced that he has a lot of people behind him providing him with this agenda and that agenda because it's just way too mixed up. It's all over the place.
Mhm.
But I think it's very hard for our prime minister. He's extremely astute. I do like what he's doing in the sense of creating a recognition to Canada. Canada has sat in the background of the USA for such a long time. And, when you take a look at the resources that we have here in our wonderful country, I mean, I was born in Toronto at St. Joseph's Hospital. And, and we've always been indirectly, in the background of what they're up to. Whatever happens in the US, let's see what happens in Canada, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that it is time for him. He is basically securing phenomenal, respectful relationships with other countries around the world.
Mhm.
He's opened up those doors to take a look on proper negotiations with respect to materials outgoing, incoming.
Mhm.
As far as, with the relationship with Kuzma, that's a difficult one. I mean, without a doubt, Mexico wants to work with Canada. There's no
Mhm.
ifs or buts about that.
Mhm.
We had the wonderful opportunity to vacation in Mexico twice over the last 2 years, and
Mhm.
I cannot tell you, everybody was so friendly. The resort was amazing. The interaction, everything about it was out of this world. I'm sad that it took me so long, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
So, where do we go and how? I think that the United States are making a massive, massive uh, problem with respect to the way that negotiations are being handled around the world that are
Mhm.
impacting not only Canada, but all these other countries, Venezuela. I mean, honestly, humanitarian, caring about other people, throwing ice around the country. I mean, come on,
Mhm.
seriously. I commend the people that spoke up the other day at the Grammys. I'm really happy and thrilled that they did. People look up to our actors and our performers and people that really have a strong voice, although they're not in the political world.
Mhm.
They see the pain.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that a
Uh,
lot of people see the pain. I feel the pain. I'm talking about it. It's making me feel the pain. So,
yeah, we're
I think that, so I hope that that answers it. I, honest to God, wish that, that the Americans can wake up to what's going on with their country. This should never happen. Okay, you can
so.
always negotiate on good terms, respectful terms, understanding with each other, and come to a proper decision that benefits everyone.
So I take it then you were impressed with his speech in Switzerland there. I think it looks like a
Oh,
lot of people were internationally very impressed with the prime minister's speech there, and then the deal
oh,
with China to bring in the electric vehicles, which I think a lot of other it kind of polarized a lot of people. Some people think it's the end of the auto industry with the electric vehicles, and others think that it's maybe like a bargaining chip that he's trying to use for these upcoming negotiations with the Americans with the Kuzma. Because if you go in there with your hat in your hand, trying to negotiate, you're obviously in a position of weakness. But if you've got all these deals, like this recent deal with South Korea now, trying to bring auto manufacturing from them into the country, uh, you know, just that deal alone with China got the president's attention very quickly. And if he sees all these other countries working with Canada, it kind of gives him something else to think about.
100%. It's interesting. There's actually a line between being a good politician and being a good business person. So when you take a look at professional negotiations, you've got to combine those two. I'm sorry. I don't believe that, you know, we look at our politicians as simply cutting ribbons and going to grand openings and shaking hands and whatever. Negotiations. I get concerned about councillors, quite frankly, negotiating deals within municipalities because I don't
Mhm.
believe that they're capable of doing it.
Mhm.
It's not their forte. But when I look at Prime Minister Carney, I look at him as being an extremely intelligent negotiator.
Mhm.
He has, he's amazing. He's got this Rubik's Cube of different initiatives,
Mhm.
and one affects the other, two affects the other, two affects the other. You get me? Until you finally get this full parcel.
Right.
And the interesting part about that is that if you are only going to negotiate in one direction, okay, you don't open the doors for a strong negotiation because you need more players in the game.
Mhm.
Okay, so the more players that you have in the game with a series of a lot of objectives of who wants what, where, this, that, and how you can fill that parcel. And of course, of course, before you sign off on it, you make sure that you covered every entity of positives and negatives. Okay, so that the end result is a clear result of what it is that you're getting. That's how you negotiate. And he's doing a fabulous job because as he was busy negotiating with China, he opened up this door, that door, here, there. He didn't turn around and block people into corners. He didn't put threats on them. He respectfully understood what they have to offer and how can it fit, negotiating with them that will benefit Canada and benefit the country that he's negotiating with. It's a
I'm
two-way street. It's not
I'm
it's
I'm
not an
sure I'm
independent
sure the
street.
canola farmers in the West Coast are very happy with them because obviously, those tariffs now are much lowered, and the $5 billion of canola that China buys from Canada can kind of resume now that those tariffs have been lowered. So I guess it
Yeah.
depends where you are.
100%, and the big picture, yeah, I'm very pleased with his, everything that his objectives that he's done, his performance. We had to get out of the position that we've been in for so many years, without a doubt. We definitely do. 2026 moves on, right?
All right. Well,
And
we'll
when we
have
see
to.
things in the internet, I don't know about you, but every time I see something in the internet, I love this. I see something on Instagram. I love it. It's great. And then what do I look on the comments? It was AI. Okay, wonderful. So much for that. So,
Well, yeah, well, AI is a whole nother different topic altogether. Like, this AI thing and the bubble that is about to burst with that kind of very much resembles, the housing bubble that we saw burst. But we're almost out of time here, Linda. So I really want to get your quick thoughts here on
yes.
looking at our friends to the south there. I know you've got a huge network there. What are they telling you about what's going on with real estate or the housing market in the United States?
Of course, it's different in every single state, depending on what's impacting
Right.
them right now. And I don't need to name the ones that are being affected by ICE. I can't imagine that that's helping their real estate values. I
Mm.
can reflect on Florida.
Yep.
I know that, seriously, we have an awful lot of Canadians that own down there. Many of them don't seem to be concerned with problems that they would reach if they do go down to their properties and come back. I'm concerned, and they are as well, a little bit about the taxation side of things
Yes.
and what could happen as far as where the revenue is and what kind of, not tariffs, but some other kind of cost named
The HOA
that could
fees.
be. Yes, yeah, exactly. So I think that that could potentially be a concern. But believe it or not, I had thoughts about buying in the US, like I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago. And what concerned me, of course, was, which is always a concern, is the difference between the Canadian and the US dollar, without a doubt. But also when I checked into condos, because I actually looked at Fort Lauderdale, I was shocked at maintenance fees in the condos. Their new bill for Canadians is insane. I couldn't believe it. So I think across the United States and the majority of states, I think that, unless they have a better situation within their country, I don't see Canadians wanting to buy in the US at this time. I don't even think a lot of people want to visit the US, quite frankly.
Yeah, we've noticed
So,
that drop in
and
visits to Las Vegas
yes,
alone.
tremendously, and even Airbnb is showing a little bit of a slowdown right now as well. So, when you get turmoil in in the country and you get so much confusion, there's so much confusion with what's going on, and you're dividing people, but you're also dividing countries, and you're dividing ethnicity and culture, and you're dividing everything.
Mhm.
So I think that exactly the uncertainty, we go back to that word, and I truly believe that that definitely impacts real estate prices in the United States, without a doubt. It's impossible for it not to.
Right.
Absolutely impossible for it not to.
All right. Well, we'll have to
It's
leave it
hitting us
there.
to some degree.
We'll have to
Yes.
leave it there for now. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate the candid thoughts and your insight into another very interesting year, if not for anything else, in real estate here in North America. uh,
Yes. Oh man.
Not just Toronto. But for people who are wondering where they can contact you or talk to you, we have your website on there. But is there anywhere else that they can contact you? Like, for example, let's get the
Oh,
condo information again.
okay. Well, on the condo, only if they're contacting me regarding the COA,
Okay.
but I think that on the real estate side, Linda at lindapinizzotto.com. You can find me all over the internet. The email address for the COA is info at coaontario.com. One thing I do want to mention is that, we have 1.4 million condo owners. And sometimes, unfortunately, between the condo owner and the property management and or the board of directors, some of the problems that they have are minuscule. They don't believe that they are. They think that they are absolutely terrible. But sometimes it's personality clashes. Sometimes it's, the way things have continued within that corporation that they live in, hard feelings, whatever the case may be. We don't tend to address those. It would be absolutely impossible. It is a nonprofit. So, if it's a really sincere, important issue that is affecting more than one or five or 10 or 20 or 30 people, without a doubt. We helped one where they had a massive problem in their underground. They had a $4 million cost expenditure and literally no money in a reserve fund. That was huge. So I want to throw that out there because there's a huge world of condo owners but on the websites, they give a ton of information. And for myself as well, you can find me all over the net. My number is 416-561-7373. I'd love to help people get organized with their own personal real estate portfolio and truly understand what real estate is all about and how you can benefit from it and become a homeowner. That's it. It's so important. It's incredibly important.
And I really appreciate the optimism there. And by the way, it's the 50th anniversary of the Blue Jay season, so why not have that optimism?
Yes,
They came so close
yes.
last year, and I remember when you remember when they both won back to back. The wave of optimism that engulfed the city, it was just unbelievable. It was like the pizza tasted better. People were walking, strutting instead of
Yeah.
just simply walking. So much amazing pride.
Oh, I know. It was, can I say one thing? I'm so proud of it.
Yes.
Actually, one of the Blue Jays actually leased one of my properties last year, and I've just done a deal for another one this year. And
Oh,
yeah, it's been fun. And plus, ACTRA, some of the actors that were involved in Tell Me Lies was an actress as well, and also Star Trek. Yes, cool.
I am a
Isn't that
Trekkie.
the awesome? That is
Whoa.
awesome. That's fun times. I gotta have some fun times. I can't just work. Oh my God. So yeah, because I have a large amount of furnished accommodation condos that I own in downtown Toronto. So
Okay.
so the doors are open for those. I have to put the plug in, but how fun is it when you have various stars contacting you?
Oh,
But
it's
every day,
unbelievable.
people from all over the world have been amazing. I've met people from all over the world. It's been awesome.
Wow. Okay, so
Totally
before
awesome.
we go, Linda, let's show that piece of memento with the Air Canada Center. Can you give us a shot there?
Oh, absolutely. Let me grab it. Okay, hold
Okay.
on.
Okay.
Incredible. One of the most
Wow.
amazing gifts.
So and that's basically the tickets those are all the tickets
Yes, these were the tickets from the original opening of the ACC.
in
And yeah,
1999.
in that 1999, yeah. February 20th, 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
amazing, isn't it?
oh
Yeah,
wow.
and all the players were on the
Yeah.
Leafs at the time.
Can you
And
hold it high
just,
with one more time? So we went.
oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. All right, so there we go. Wow, all the tickets in 1999. That is an amazing memento there. Wow. Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing that. I'm
Oh,
sure
you're
the
welcome. It's going to be up on my wall on the next time we're chatting.
absolutely. Yeah, we want to see it up on the wall in the very next time. We're out of time for this one, but thank you so much, Linda, for coming on. Boy, we knocked out a lot of stuff here today. Next time we'll dive even deeper and maybe focus on a few topics here because we need to get through 2026. But with the optimism and the knowledge that you bring, Linda, I truly believe that we can definitely do this. So I really look forward to our next discussion here. And on behalf of everyone here at AvranceCorp, want to thank Linda for coming on. I am Kanai. We do this every Wednesday at 2 p.m. So for everyone here, we will see you right back here next week. So until then, bye bye, everyone. See you next week.